It's been a while since we've connected. How's your week been? What have you been up to?
Okay, so if no one has anything to start with, I want to start with a situation that happened to me with my client, and I would love to get
Sorry, I
your
have
kind of
Tova frozen.
insight, feedback, perspective on this. So I'm working with one of my clients, A, is a startup, and they're still in the fundraising stages. So a lot of people are mostly working for equity. And we have a team meeting, and we're always like, the CEO, who's the founder, kind of runs it, and he kind of says like what's on his mind, and he hijacks the time to discuss like how he thinks and his list, and then leaves the last 5-10 minutes for the really important topics for us to really as a team discuss and weigh in, especially as a leadership team.
Yep.
And it's hard to get things done and moving because he comes in a whirlwind where he just jumps thoughts, information, like going through his list. And also, like, he knows everything because he's the CEO, so he's talking to everyone. And the point of this weekly meeting is for all of us to connect to know what's going on. And the whole point is to update everyone on everyone's items. But what ends up happening is he goes off his checklist of his open items. So none of us gets answers for our items. And then he's like, who has anything else to say? We're over time now. So who else wants to say something? And I'm like, you went over everyone's time. It's a conversation to be had. Like, who's going to really have raised their hand and say something?
Correct.
So, and it's been ongoing. Anyways, I kind of didn't do much. This past Wednesday, we have our monthly leadership team. And I kind of brought it up and I went up against him. And he got super defensive. With also the caveat of like, no, I know we're just trying to help each other. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I need to take a step back. So this was interesting because I kind of got to see the true colors in a way. And I'm still thinking this through of how do I handle this? Because A, I think I do have a very valid point. B, he holds me accountable that I'm not getting my stuff done, but he's not giving me the chance to explain myself or give the reason why, and how he's not giving the chance or opportunity for others to explain the full picture. And he's just zeroing on one aspect or focus for himself. And then when you're trying to explain, he goes, well, why is it not? And then he comes at you really hard. So most people back off. But this time, being my true self, and I'm like, I pushed back really hard. And when I pushed back on him, he got super defensive, like beyond.
You mean, okay, was he pissed off? Was he personally offended? Or he was
So he's like, well, that's not true. He was defending himself. He was defensive. Wait, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by work? What are you trying to say? That's not the case. And I was like, can I come back to you on this? Because he didn't give a chance for me to even express as I'm trying to get my words across. And obviously, each person understands words differently. So you elaborate on what you mean by certain words so people could always understand what you mean when you say certain things. But he was just pushing hard, like, no, that's not. What do you mean by that? Like, not.
I'm curious about what it's a leadership team call, right? So
yeah.
I'm curious what were the reactions from the other leadership member?
Everyone. So one of them kind of was like shaking his head. Then he called in the other person, another person like, wait a second, is this? Because I was like, I said to him, you don't give someone a chance. I said, you always say you open the floor for people to speak up, but actually you don't. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, hey, so-and-so, is this true? And then she was like, well, I think, being, and she's a good friend. We're really close. And she's like, Tova, you pushed him really hard on his level where he isn't challenged. He's also very stressed because he has to deliver to raise money. Mm-hmm. And I said, I could tone it down a bit from now. So I'm kind of like, where do I go with this right now? And that's kind of my question to you guys.
I mean, a thought immediately comes to mind. I would, next time you see him or talk to him or correspond with him, I would just do a temperature check.
Yeah.
And like, does he give you an attitude? Is he still pissed off or defensive? Did you rub him the wrong way? And, or is he just going to let it pass by like water under the bridge? Obviously, I don't know his personality because some people, they just hold on to that type of
Yeah.
Okay, so
interaction.
his personality is, once he sees your point, he lets it go. He is open to that. Like, but it does take time. And it's also like your timing has to be right, the timing of that. So I backed off because my timing for me to like explain this to him is not the right time, I believe. Just again, like you said, take the temperature. So after the call, after the meeting, I stepped away. I said, hey, you know, was great chatting today. Sorry for my interruptions, working through that. I would love to continue our conversation. Could we could understand each other's styles better so that we could have more effective communication and the ability to move much quicker, more efficiently. And he's like, absolutely, you know. And then I left it at that. That was like right after.
I think
But today or the other day, I'm kind of feeling the pokes. He was on my ass. And I had answers for everything. I wrote right back very quickly, no delay. I went boom, 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 boom. As we said, boom. Oh, if you recall this, you know, arrows up, boom. Like I went back at him because he went at me on Slack basically, and I just was like, okay,
right.
I have an answer. Boop, boop. Okay, done.
Yep.
Well, from my experience, well, clearly he's holding on to it. He's emotional, and what comes to mind is having an offline conversation, just the two of you.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too, Tova. Just have one-on-one conversation with him, but the tone of the conversation, maybe like I'm just thinking, right? On that leadership call, like I don't know how the conversation was set it up, but it seems like it was more of like a shock to him that you brought it up. Maybe it wasn't raised before, it was raised in that time, like in front of everybody in the leadership team. Maybe he feel like he's losing face or like getting like more emotional things stirring off. And so I think with that context, maybe that's why he's more triggered by that. And I think the one-on-one conversation, as you follow up with him, you for sure know how to handle this. But I think I would take it more as like the way I'm thinking about it is laying out the pros and cons of the method. Like, well, not there's probably wouldn't be a lot of pros in this case.
Here's where my issue is.
Yeah,
I'm right, and he has points to be right. Why do I need to be apologetic? Or why do I need to like grow the fuck up and just take it? Like I do too, you know, like you should too.
How old is he?
He's 40. He's okay. So there's two parts. This was a meeting we had in person. It was all the heads of department. It wasn't just leadership. Leadership has more people. This is more the senior of like the executive committee. Okay. And we meet on a once a month base. And I talked about the leadership call is not as effective as it could be because of how he runs it. And I was like, observation, if that's okay. I said, you don't really give a chance, because he was complaining how he wants us to be able to and what we could do to be better and get what we need done. And I was pretty much like, we can't because of you. I mean, I didn't say that, but I said it makes it really difficult and challenging for the other members to really explore and express what they think and feel or really be honest on those calls because of how they're conducted. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I always say, you know, we have time to talk. Or I said, yeah, when we're already 5 minutes over after you framed it. Well, we're 5 minutes late and I want to be conscious of everyone's time. Anyone else here have anything to say now?
I think for those leaderships, very senior heads of department calls, I'm I'm pretty sure you guys have bullet points and agenda of which department wants to talk about which point that's documented. So I think based on that, it's like, the CEO bullet points, you have the head of customer success bullet point, you have the tech. Just lay it out like, hey, we just only gone through you. What about the other agenda that we have listed? And like, none of that. We need to create secondary meeting in order to accomplish our goals for other department heads, because it was mainly dominated by your conversation, your thoughts, more of a brainstorming session for you and problem session for you, rather than like for all of us to work together. So I propose, like, if we need more time for the CEO thoughts, we created a different session. And then like for other departments, then let's create a separate session that face that. I think with that, he can probably clearly see what's the issue.
I was going to say that
Yeah.
some sort of documentation. So
Right.
sending out bullet points or like an agenda before the meeting, and then see it by the end of the meeting. How much of it you actually cover? Is it like 99% taken over by his agenda? Then you
Correct.
have documentation and you have data to show him that, listen, you're hijacking these meetings. And as Cleo said, if we need to have another meeting or to cover the rest of the agenda items, so be it, because the past few have been just taken over with your bullet points.
Correct.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit tricky because this is what happened. So I made this comment. We had this on a Wednesday in person. Thursday, we had our leadership meeting. And today he was all over my ass. So
He's not over
on
this.
Thursday,
Lola.
on Thursday, we had two people on the leadership team, our product team and head of engineering, having to go through. And then he wanted to discuss his issues. So it was a 30-minute meeting. For 23 minutes, he dominated. Then he goes, okay, so we'll go quickly through everyone else's things. We'll go quickly through them. So he gave time, but he didn't really give enough time for the conversation. So, and also you have to understand, when people are hearing information for the first time, they're digesting and processing. And they need the space to then to be able to respond. We're getting a data download and dump, and then we're walking away.
Right. Exactly. It's not an exchange of thoughts or information. It's more of you taking the data and you go with it, and then like whatever he asks you to do, and you go to do it. It defeats the purpose of brainstorming or having those thoughtful sessions. I think that
That's exactly it. I think he's described it much better than I was. That to have thoughtful conversation, and this is where I'm getting stuck in my work, because he wants these things done, but in order for me to do these things, I want to do it thoughtfully and methodically, and getting full perspective from people, and giving them also a chance to think it through, and not being forced to like give an immediate answer. And those things need time to synthesize and to process, digest, and then come back. And I'm not getting to deliver on my part because I'm not having the connection and alignment time for the people and the stakeholders that I need.
Honestly, that's why I really like recorded meetings. So you can always go back and reference who is like speaking of what, and you will like from note taking perspective, and also you can tell who's dominating the call percentage wise. What about just exclude him from the conversations? Just wild idea putting out there. I know like he wanted to be involved and all that, but like if you can sync up with the different my thought is if you can sync up with different department heads and solve majority of question, then when you come together with the other department head plus the CEO, then you're kind of just like you have your basis already, rather than you're putting everything into like into the
and I'll tell you why. Okay, so there's one person on the team, she's marketing, so she and I work a lot together because a lot of our work really coincides together. And we get into the conversations, and we also share and we get through what we need to. The issue is some of the other team members that are more technical based, so we're talking about engineering and product, for some of the things that we need to deliver on, like in terms of prioritization, like deadlines, not a strategy, They require me and them, but their focus is so much on very strong deliverables. Like,
Yeah.
to get time with them on that end is more challenging. So, one of the more challenges is they are located on the West Coast.
Hmm.
People have multiple jobs. This is not their only gig, because they're mostly getting equity.
Yep. No, it's still recording. I think you just
Yeah,
hopped
I
off.
think you just disappeared.
Yeah, that's fine. We can edit this portion out, but it's fine.
Yeah. Again, it was
Yeah.
just like something that happened to me, and I just was like, oh, so this is how it is. Okay, let me readjust. Let me think this through. Like, I don't have an answer what I want to do. It's more of like, I need to digest, because I was able to fully see. When you finally understand how somebody is, like, as you get to know someone, the more you get to know them, you get to realize, oh, this person is like this. Okay. But you only know that after something happens, some kind of friction, some kind of confrontation, a
Yeah.
misalignment, misexpectations.
But Tova, I was just thinking while you're speaking about this, I was thinking,
Yeah.
you're coming off from like a very thoughtful customer success very thoughtful customer success professional perspective. You want things to planned out as, or thinking deeply about, like, about this a problem and trying to build a
Yeah.
plan to solve the problem. Maybe I don't know the size of the startup. If they're a very early stage startup, does this part required? Is this something that I'm like
It's,
asking more fundamental questions?
when you just
But
said, I'm coming from customer experience, customer success, the guy's an operations guy. So you nailed it. You nailed it. That's the way his mind is. But he's losing out.
correct. He doesn't
The
realize
team
it.
is losing out. The company loses out. Yeah, so I was going to say, I think Cleo nailed it. I think there's a lot about who people are and how they think and operate, and that's their go to. But I also believe when you're a CEO, when you're a startup, when you're in leadership, you lose out when you're not opening yourself up to other perspectives. And that's the whole point of having your leadership, your executive team and, those kind of
Correct.
people.
Do you think perhaps you're holding a very idealistic view of what leadership should be versus
Yeah,
the actual large egos of leaders who tend to be very
absolutely.
self-centered and
Absolutely.
defensive, stressed, threatened, going a million miles a minute, and at the end of the day, the being proper or following a best practice or what have you really falls to the bottom of
Oh,
the
but that.
long list
Oh,
of to-dos.
yeah, no, you're right. My expectation of what I think and a demand for, a leadership team and executive team versus the reality of what people are. I'm at the place also in life where I shouldn't settle for what the reality is. Like, I should demand higher. If I have high expectations of myself and deliver, shouldn't I not demand that from my customer?
Yeah.
And
You
and
have
that's
the
really
right to.
where it comes down to. Do I deliver high quality and then be accepting to people who don't, or not delivering in the way that they should be?
I think, in my opinion, that's where the private one-on-one conversation comes in, where
Mm-hmm.
you just take it offline, put
Yeah.
he this person is not does not have a spotlight on him like a leadership meeting, and just talk it through in a very mature, constructive, calm manner, and see if he takes it or he goes back to his ways.
And that's what happened in like that monthly, like we were in person, where I was trying to be really calm, and he just kept coming for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Is
and I didn't back down. I responded back. I said, "Excuse me, no, that's not the case." I said, "Let me explain. You're interrupting me."
mm,
Mm-hmm. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Do you
Yeah.
think since it seems like you're getting emotional, you're just heightening his defense mechanism and
So,
Isn't
and I actually asked for feedback from the other woman that was there. And she's like, no, you met him at his level that he was at. She's like, I usually back down. I step away. I don't go there. It's not my style. I don't do that. She's like, you kept up with him. You pushed him back. You challenged him.
I think it's key to kind of follow up with the 101, like Jenny said, a private 101, Tova, to kind of level set the tone between you two. I think it's okay. We have escalated each other in the last two times in this week, and I don't. This type of working style is not going to benefit both of us or create any efficiencies. I want to talk it out. Just
Well, that's
talk.
right afterwards. I sent him the Slack message of saying, and I took my ownership. I said, I was interrupting too. I'm sorry about that. I'm working through it. Like I didn't, put it all on him. And I said, let's continue the conversation. I think there's a lot more we could figure out and help us understand each other's, communication styles so that we can do, work better together, like get
Did he
through more.
apologize?
And what did he
Mm-mm.
say?
He's like, yeah, for sure. Hell yeah. Yeah.
He
Do
didn't
you have?
apologize, and he just kind of like went with your response and took your apology. This is
I
why
didn't
I don't
apologize.
like women.
Let me see. Let me look at this again.
Okay.
But okay, so two things. A, I am going to see him because this Saturday I'm doing brunch with him and his wife and my other client. So my two clients know each other. I was referred. So we're all meeting together. So I could definitely have a one-on-one conversation with him there. Okay, so I wrote my apologies for and he's like, no worries and hell yeah. He's like, I need more of today's conversation and one of these days we'll have to, okay. He even said, like, so he was like, yeah, I need to have more of these conversations with you. Like, he wasn't.
He wasn't saying no, but he wasn't also apologizing,
Yeah, like he's
which
like,
is
I need
not
this to keep me honest, but I don't like being kept honest. Kind of like that was.
like how you were saying your son. Like, this is making me feel uncomfortable. I don't like this feeling. You're making him
Yeah.
feeling uncomfortable right now. Of course, he's gonna like
Hmm.
not liking it, but that's the process like where you're taking him through. And I
Yeah.
think it's key to explain to him why you're taking him through that.
Yeah.
So once I think he gets that point, then he'll be like, "Oh hell yeah, let's do more of this. This is actually very stimulating, rather than
Yeah.
like bumping heads."
Welcome back,
To
Jenny.
Israel. After some technical issues, we're back. So let's wrap this up. What is the best way forward for Tova in terms of dealing with her CEO and
It's
overcoming
my
this
client. This is my client.
client?
This is my customer. Like, yeah, this is my client. And
Yeah. Tova, I think whatever you're doing is right, because otherwise
Mhm.
people won't realize that's his blind spot. So whatever you're doing, you're right, and maybe like adjusting your style accordingly to meet where he's at. Maybe he
Yeah.
never was confronted like that, like in his personal professional life before. So I think to kind of still doing what you're doing, but adjusting to his pace and having those one-on-one conversations and kind of just like you got to see this the efficiencies.
I think this is like my biggest, like, not issue, but where I'm having, like, I'm being stubborn.
I
I
was
have to
going to
meet him where
say,
he's at. Why is he not meeting me where I'm at? Jenny saw me
uh,
right away. It's like, why does the bigger person, the smarter person, the more mature person has to be the one to give to the one that's lesser than? I mean, that's life, right? Not just in
that
this.
is life. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, this guy's in charge.
But
Fine.
I could be like, I don't want to work with you. You're not the right client
That's
fit for me.
that's true too. That's true.
That's
Like I
another thing
didn't
I was going to ask you. I'm like, maybe that's not
I
the right fit.
I didn't start my own business to be like I have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
again, I think
unfortunately,
there's a balance of both. Like I have to get over some of this, and then
yes, and also realize if you lose him as a client, you lose the equity and the money too.
Yeah.
So
I should just shut up. Yeah.
unfortunately,
No, I took a step back. But I want to just say it and like, I really wanted to say like, no, you need to meet me at my level. Like, grow the
Well, I
fuck up.
right. I totally understand. I feel like just
I
shut
didn't
up.
say that, of course, but
I experienced something similar in my workspace lately. Not to this extent, but like a coworker who always likes to put his like input and like likes to complain things like that. Like I just need to shut up and do work, and that's it.
I think at
yeah.
the end of the day, just shut up and do the work, and
I
try
think
not to burn bridges.
I think there's like a time when to engage and when there's a time to not. And I think like that's yeah.
But I
Well, thank you
rule
for
for
validating me and that I'm right. But
I didn't say that.
I'm taking that.
well, I rule for your way, okay? I rule for your way. I think you're supposed to do that. And I don't know, that's just me. I'm not gonna let like shit just happen and be quiet like that. Like I will call you out, but I'm gonna call you out in a very professional way.
Right,
Yeah.
and both sides present their their perspectives. Hopefully, there's a middle ground, but if not, I mean, then you know who you're dealing with.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway for me and really opportunity and growth moment or lesson learned is I got a chance to see how this person is. So knowing how this
Yes.
person is, it's on me to then be like, how do I want to manage myself? Or how do I want to, when do I engage and when do I don't? And that's really, thank you, girls. Yeah. That's really where I need to, make my choices.
Right.
Oh, we lose her again. All
There we
right.
go.
With that said, our technical
All
issues and
right.
everything else, guys, hopefully you had a great time. We'll see you all next time.
Take care. Bye bye.